Conference 2026. My name is Aima Igbelaki, and I'm delighted to be moderating this session today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Everyone with me today has been introduced. They're seasoned practitioners, and we know what the bedrock of this is all about. We all know, and one of the things we talk about at FSEC, which is our Family Systems Engineering Institute, is that the family is the bedrock of the society. In other words, what that means is how the society would look like is greatly determined by what the family looks like. We're going to jump right into it. I know we have some questions here. I would like us to deliberate a little bit about it, and then let's have fun, enjoy the ride, but most importantly, let's take notes, and so we can have something to take home and then put this to practice. Thank you. So I'm going to start with you, Mama Kathy. Are you ready? Okay. Mama Kathy still needs a little bit, just a few more minutes. Mommy Mo. Okay, I'll start with you. So the first question I have for you today is this. If we truly treated family restoration as a national development strategy rather than a private issue, what policies, investments, or institutional reforms would Africa begin prioritizing immediately?
Thank you, Aima. That's a very good question. And welcome everybody to this conference. If Africa and the nations within it truly appreciated that the family is the production factory of the society, I think the first thing that we will do as governments is document our history. You cannot pass on something that is not recorded somewhere. Our young people today ask us questions, and all we usually say to them, it's our culture. They don't know the why, they don't know the reason why things are the way. So definitely a policy in place that says, let's document our history and then let's pass it on, for me would be the first place to start. Then the next thing to do will be to look at our recruitment and employment policies and understand that the people who are going to marry, start families, and raise children need to live way beyond survival. Look, for instance, at our current situation where the minimum wage is 70,000 naira. Anyone who is going to be responding to life from a survival basis cannot think straight to actually pass on generational values to everybody. The values that will be passed on would be survival values. There was something that my father said some years ago when we had elections, and I'm going to mention the name of Governor Fashola. My father said the reason why Governor Fashola will do roads that have gutters, that's drains, and is because he grew up in Surulere. And if you lived in Surulere and grew up in Surulere, that was just how every place was. And so, from childhood, he already had been exposed to structured things. That is the way to build a nation. Families are doing their best, but the environmental factors, which is determined largely by those who are governing us, is not at all encouraging us to give focus to building the family and building the nation. Rather, it is putting us in situations where we're struggling for survival, and transmission of generational values is the least thing that is on the mind of many parents.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mommy Mo. That's quite instructive. And this is what I hear. I heard on a larger scale, better economic reforms, right? And we understand that. We know that if the nation is better, if we're better positioned as a nation, then some of those things would actually trickle down to maybe individuals and their communities and the little groups, smaller groups that we all belong to. I also really like how you mentioned documenting stuff, taking records and all that. Now, not to oversimplify this, but And we can see, or we heard how Mommy Mo said, there was something my father said. In our generation, in the current generation, and when we think about the future generation, how many of our children are we positioning to be able to say, there was something my father said, there was something my mother said? So again, it's not just for us to listen to this. I'd like us, there are nuggets that are being dropped here. Take notes and let's take these things back home, and hopefully we'll be able to write a better story for incoming generations. I'll come to you, Juwon. My first question for you today is this. We often discuss economic growth, politics, and infrastructure as the pillars of national development, yet we rarely discuss the family. Why do you believe nations rise or fall on the strength of their family systems?
Thank you, Emma. Good morning, everyone. I think one of the greatest mistakes of modern society today is treating family health as a private matter when it is actually a public infrastructure. UNICEF reports that nearly 37 million adolescents aged 10 to 19 in Africa live with mental disorders. I looked at the statistics. Research on sub-Saharan African also estimates that between 8 and 40% of children are not living with one or both parents, often due to migration, separation, abandonment, or even relational instability. If you look across Africa today, we are witnessing rising in social instability, youth disillusionment, mental health strains, and weakening family value systems. And if you look at these societal problems, they don't begin in offices, government offices, or on the streets. They started within the broken family structures. They started within absent mentorship and poor family structures. We focus many times on fixing the downstream societal problems where we should be addressing the upstream family dysfunction. So if the challenges that we see today are not comfortable, then we need to take this thing back. Because as far as I'm concerned, one of the greatest strategies that Africa can make today is to begin to take the conversation of family matters or family system beyond inspiration into systems. And what do I mean? You can, a father can say, I love my children. That's nice. That's inspiring. That's inspirational. But when he starts having daily check-in conversations, weekly family meetings, monthly movie dates, then he's building a system. Because the thing about system is the fact that it creates predictability. So when you do something when you feel like it, it's not a system. But when you consistently do it, whether emotions fluctuate or not, you do it, then you're building a system.
That's right.
So if we begin to take these conversations beyond, because in many societies in Africa now, we are excited about discussing family values. We are very emotional about it, but we are not that intentional in building structures that will sustain healthy family life. And so that's where the conversation should go to. It is not a repair what has been done. It is go back to the upstream family dysfunction and begin to fix it. How do we do this? How do we do this? Check. The people who run the nations, the people who lead us, they are produced from families. Uh, every leader was once a child. Every citizen was raised in a home.
That's right.
And I say this, market, every society will eventually reflect the emotional condition of its families. And so it's, a, it's an upstream family dysfunction that we should focus on. How do we do it? Family education, emotional intelligence training, parenting support structures, premarital preparation. Mommy Mo mentioned it. If we begin to look at things in this dynamic, go to the primary schools, we have religious studies, we have social studies, we have family studies. Put it in secondary school curriculum, put it in our tertiary institution. People prepare for wedding without preparing for emotional partnership. We train extensively for our careers. But the basic relational education for parenting, we don't know jack about it.
That's right.
So until we begin to bring these discussions down to, it's not a private matter conversation. It's not an inspirational conversation. It's a public infrastructure. That's when we begin to see changes. I think I'll stop there for now.
Wow. Are we listening here? That's profound. That's profound. And I appreciate the balance there. And again, it's going back to the basics. Yes, the society has its role to play, but then he said something. Our leaders are basically who we are. Probably the difference between us and maybe the person who is the governor or the president right now will be the fact that we, maybe a good number of us, are the presidents in our homes and not necessarily at the White House somewhere or in Aso Rock somewhere. That's it. It's just the location that is different. But the basic principles of leadership remain the same, regardless of location. Who are we at home? As a father, who am I? As a mother, who am I? What are the things that we pour into our children every day? What are our family values? What are our family routines? What are the things that, even when we're long gone as parents, that our children can say, oh, I remember my dad used to tell me this. My mom told me this. We did this as a family. I happen to practice as a psychotherapist to what I call a special population of people. They're second generation immigrants. Most times it's kids who come to me. And I can say that 100% of the time, by the time we start to see these children, we realize these children are not the problem. It's actually the parents. And just like Juwon pointed out, yes, we're trying to do this work. We're trying to empower children. We're trying to say, oh, you can do better. But if I, as a practitioner, if we're empowering the children and then we throw them back into the hands of parents who have no idea what parental leadership should look like, then it's going to be a mess. It's a vicious cycle that would end in the rot. So again, parents, this is us talking to each other. This is us challenging each other. For the singles who are here, someday, hopefully, maybe you want to be a parent or you hope to be a parent someday. We'll have to take these things back. And then maybe, I'm glad that we have, government officials here. Again, we need your help too. Because we know, maybe especially in a society like this where there is, it's an aristocratic culture, we depend on the leadership to be able to help us drive some of these things as well. So thank you very much for that, Juwon. Thank you. Mama Kathy, are you ready for me?
Very ready.
Thank you. What role should schools, faith institutions, media platforms, and governments play in normalizing family healing and emotional restoration across Africa?
Thank you very much, Iman. A very good morning to everybody who's here. It's good to be here and to be a part of the conversation. That's a very brilliant question because at the end of the day, we are singling out structures that truly have relevance when it comes to rebuilding the society, starting from schools. So we remember every one of us here once was in a school. Being in a school is a byproduct of growing through the family system and the family unit. And I believe that every school should have a very strong mentoring, counseling department for children because we are living in a generation where most families have outsourced parenting to television, to housekeeping, and to a lot of other systems. So most children that qualify to get into schools have not had enough support from their parents. And that support is so important in forming who a child is. And so if you're receiving children from homes that most times are broken, or the parents are too busy trying to generate resources to keep the home going, at the detriment of raising and forming children whose personalities actually matter in nation building, then you've got to know that you are a reservoir of people who are migrating from a place where there was no system to a place where you must be intentional at building systems to accommodate the lapses that produce these children that have registered with you. So at the end of the day, you realize that they wear uniform, but most of them are broken. Most of them have been traumatized. A lot has happened to them at home. And some of them have parents they can't sincerely open up to and be transparent with. So the school system has to come up, with a strategy of making children feel vulnerable, but yet very open, so that they could be healing. Ultimately, these children that are in schools are the very ones that will be saddled with the responsibility of leadership tomorrow. So garbage in, garbage out. If at that level, you are not making provision to healing their emotional wounds, then you are preparing people who will be sadists and take up responsibilities. And that's why we are where we are as Africans. So the school counseling department has to be revamped. Children today, because of the avalanche of information, draw the lines on whether they want to be vulnerable with you. And so having that counseling department will require retraining the counselors, collaborating with FSEC, the very body that organizes this, to helping the counselors in schools come up with a system that makes children feel safe and can trust the system they are opening up to for healing and for openness for that healing to happen. And so school principals should realize that they are trusted with destinies that are very weak. And if they don't invest time, it's not, I like telling people, it's not training and producing best students that will go to Harvard or MIT or any of these Ivy League universities. At the end of the day, our qualification don't make us. Our emotional intelligence is what makes us.
Thank you, Mama.
So it's good to be the best in whatever capacity you want to be. But if you can't relate because you were broken, you're going to cause pain to the very society you're supposed to heal. So the school has to be the receiving end from the bottom, where they now come up with structures. They build peer groups. They encourage a lot of things that will make children open up and be willing to accept healing. Because without that, you are producing people that will not be useful to the society. Then I moved to the church. I'm a part of a church. I'm an ordained minister. But oftentimes when I go to church and I see thousands of people gather, what I see is not the containers that are sitting. I'm seeing the content that use church to stay high as people who use cocaine. Because at the end of the day, I am not the person speaking to you. Right. It takes you relating with me to know my content. And so the church has to rework the curriculum they were using before. It's not working. I'm a counselor. It's not working. It's not about communication. It's not about sex. It's not about respect. It's not about that. If fundamentally people are broken, come on, you can't get marriage working. That's right. And people gravitate to church because they want to have an avenue that they could receive healing. So the church has to see marriage and bodies like these not as competitors but as collaborators. Because oftentimes you want to work with churches. They are thinking that you are coming to deplete their numbers. It's not time for depleting of numbers again. The other camp that we choose not to talk about is very strategic when it comes to the agenda. And that agenda has infiltrated the church. We are dealing with same sex. We are dealing with a lot of things. And you are dealing with people. I have people come to my counseling room who speak in tongues, read the Bible inside out, do all the activities and look at me and say, Mommy, I've been struggling with same sex for 30 years, for 20 years. And I say, you are getting married. Some of them, you are getting married. Have you shared with your spouse, with your partner to be, that you have this struggle? No, man. If I share, the person will abandon me. But these are people in the pews. These are people who hold microphones. Sorry, I am one of them. These are people who are vested with authority to lead the people in church. So what would we better do? Because we have an audience that gather to hear us. I believe that most preachers in church should suspend preaching other topics and go back to family life. Go back to family life. Because if it doesn't work there, it's not going to work anywhere. And it's time that we realize that just quoting scriptures doesn't make us. But practicing the scriptures because we've been healed is what makes us. So the church has to rework the curriculum, the counseling department, and let people realize that I may have come from a home where there was no connection, where there was no emotional bonding, where I was not listened to, where I barely survived, and I just escaped to get into marriage. And you take me through a counseling process that doesn't cleanse me of the residue. You should realize that you are not only breaking me, you are breaking the generation that comes after me. And so it's time to see things in perspective and realize that there's a future. A future that is literally losing out. A future that is literally getting lost. A future that has no hope. Just because we are zeroing in on things that are not important. So the church needs to collaborate with people that can come and help people set systems. That before I get into marriage, I understand the vision, the mental picture of that marriage, and then the preferred future I want to have. That I'm not going there to figure out things. That I've been well prepared and equipped to take on the journey. That I have a legacy I'm looking up to bringing on board and bringing my children on board to embrace, because I have been adequately prepared. It's time to do that. It's time to do that. And let me borrow you and take us to our room. Recently, I did a podcast that had over 100 and something thousand views. But then what happened to me was, it's not peculiar to only Africa, they're asking me. Australia, America, Europe, Asia, everywhere, they called in. But I discovered one thing. If the church doesn't do something very urgent, I'm telling you the truth, we may have something much bigger than we can handle. And then let's go to the media. Oh, the media is what forms the culture. And it's high time African leaders realize that what they permit on screen and what they permit to be projected will form the culture. The TikTok that is celebrating nudity in China, it is recognized that they don't use the same TikTok. And so when we make it look like being influential and being an influencer is all about projecting body parts, may I announce that every body part has expiring dates. That's right. And so I know that we are living in a generation where there's fluidity of information, fluidity of everything. It's a global village, and there's a lot going on that just flows down. But it's time that the government, because I'm going to put the two together, come up with policy direction that is straight. Africa has been blessed with everything. Africa has been blessed. Why must we be totally dependent to a place that they close and shut our mouth and we can stand up for what we believe? I believe proper family life will produce people who stand face to face, head on with people who are policy drivers outside Africa, the Western world, and tell them we can't accommodate this again. You have infiltrated our system to the place that we don't have control again. But media must be properly organized to produce some things that will change the dynamics of operation of the African world. And then government, garbage in, garbage out. You vote for me, you don't know what I carry. Do I have the potentials to stand up and push ideas and agendas and bills? Why do they go to the House of Rep and Senate? What are they going there to do? It's not about stomach infrastructure. Government policy should be targeted at rebuilding Africa. And it happens from the family. If you look away from the family, it's only a matter of time. We'll be extinct. But that shall not be under our watch. So everybody has a responsibility to put in their best and get the structures strengthened, systems working, everybody taking place. Because minds are formed from the home to the school to every of this segment. And until we really look what we really celebrate, nothing will change.
Wow. I feel like dropping this mic right now. Like we're done. We might as well be done here, right? But we're not done. We're just getting started. And we've heard it all. She's gone from the home, the impact of what we do in the home, to the schools, to the church, to government. I would say that, you know how Nigerians, as Nigerians, we pride ourselves. Nigeria is one of the most religious countries in the world. But every day, I live in a place where it's very religiously very conservative. And I see Christians function every day. And when I look at like the Nigerian Christian, like in comparison, I'm like, guys, why? Why? And may I just use this opportunity to say, just like Mama Kathy has laid that foundation, gone are those days. You might shoot me right now if you want to, maybe after I say this. But gone are those days where, as maybe especially as mothers, we are praying, God, give my daughter. It's not even the sons, so most times it's the daughters. And then we pass on that generational trauma. A godly man, most men, or a good number, let me say a good number, I'll rephrase that. A good number of men are, in quotes, godly, but they have no idea when it comes to emotional intelligence. You cannot build a working marriage in this day, age, and time based on, the man, very godly. Pastor, godly. Very sweet. He's a deacon in church. But at home, he's a mess. He's a terrorist at home. And where does it start from? The family. And that brings me to the other thing. Here, we pride ourselves too. We're very strong. Nigerians, we're resilient. Where did we get our resilience from? It was because most of us, let's be straight up honest with ourselves right now, most of us grew up as survivors. And when you're coming and functioning from a place of survival, you function differently, you show up differently. Yelling is like a way of life. Everything about you is you just want to show. Do you know who I am? It's not something to be proud of, guys. Let's start talking to ourselves in places like this. Emotionally, who are we? Gone are those days where you tell children, you're a boy. We probably all experienced it. And some of us are still doing it. Our boy child will tell them, don't cry, you're a boy. You fell down, get up, keep moving. We're not even stopping to acknowledge the emotion that's attached to falling for that child. What do they feel? But we tell them, just dust it and keep moving on. The children whose emotions we fail to acknowledge and to nurture and to help guide them through are the ones who grew up as men who are narcissists today. Maybe a major difference between practicing here and practicing the way I do is we name everything where I come from. So it's narcissistic disorder, it's emotional intensity disorder. Of course, we don't like all those names. When we say, you have this, like, no, God forbid. It's not my portion. It's not your portion. Is it my portion? I'm the clinician here. So again, let us go back to the basics. Thank you. Mommy Mo, Mama Kathy said something about marriages. So I'd like to ask you, final question. If Africa intentionally committed the next 20 years to restoring marriages, strengthening parenting, healing trauma, and rebuilding family systems, what kind of continent could emerge economically, socially, and morally? In 1-2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Right. First of all, work that I have done over the last 5 years preparing singles for marriage, the chief thing that has come out of it is that the people that we encourage to marry are not ready to marry. And the readiness when your children say, I don't want to marry, isn't that they don't want to marry and have families. It is that they're seeing from the marriages that are before them that people who are married don't have the skills, don't have the tools, don't have the paradigms that are required actually to collaboratively live with another person. In the research I have working with couples, the data is also showing that people who are already married name lack of effective communication as the challenge that they're having. But when you go behind the scene and do assessments for them, you'd find out that they're people who have not been nurtured to speak clearly what is on their mind. They're people who have not been nurtured to listen to somebody who thinks differently from them. They're people who have been nurtured to believe that conflict means trouble, whereas conflict only means I have a different opinion from you and both of us feel strongly about it. Were we to take just these things, and by the way, if how you know whether we're doing well is when people get to adulthood, if they're able to do these things easily without needing additional support, then we know that we're starting well. That we're seeing these indications is clear to us, and there is no need to apportion blame. Parents can't pass on what they do not know. For government people who are here, what do you need to do? I'm aware that by collaborating with us, Lagos State now makes it a requirement in their registry that people who want to get married have some form of what we call marriage education, and the goal is to prevent domestic violence. What if all the state governments have this kind of policy in place? Two, even having the policies in place, what if the government agencies that are having to do with family or youth begin actually to collaborate with the people who are in the field, like the Institute of Family Engineering and Development, and actually study what is on the ground? Because my firm belief is Panadol cures headache. However, if your headache is being caused by the fact that you have a brain tumor, there is no help that Panadol can do for you. It is not for nothing that doctors require you to go to have some tests done in the laboratory, even when they have an idea of what is wrong with you. What they try to do by those tests is to examine what is really going on so that I can confirm that my diagnosis is true. If all of us, I would start first of all with the individual, because a tree cannot make a forest. But if you don't plant the first tree, there will never be a forest. So if you are in this room today, what I would like you to take away from this conference is, what do I need to do so that we can begin to see things differently? Then you draw a circle around yourself. You don't need to influence the whole of Uyo. You just need to understand what's happening in the circle around you and then do it. And then we move on. If you're in a position of authority, as a parent, as a government official, as a pastor in the church, as a community leader, then you take responsibility for the place where you are having leadership. And you say to yourself, what do I need to understand about families, about the patterns that are currently existing? What do I need to do to change those patterns? And if you and I begin to intentionally do all of these things that I have said, you'd be amazed. Change is not so difficult. It only requires people who are willing to do their part in bringing that change about.
Thank you. Thank you, Mamimo. This has been a wonderful conversation, if you ask me. And I had a lot of hums and nods. I saw the nods and all of that. But I hope that we will take that beyond this room. This is going to be an ongoing conversation. And again, most importantly, let us sit with ourselves, have conversations with ourselves. And like I always say, to thine own self be true. And really look, what's your role? What can you do? And let's all stay committed to writing a better story for the incoming generation. To my panelists, I want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing so brilliantly and so fully. Um, we hope that you will continue to enjoy the conference.